What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Denver Sports Podcast. And today we're talking about, you guessed it, the Denver Broncos. In Bo we trust. It is a early edition, almost a pre-game show, a pre-show show to your guys' show coming up 15 minutes after this one.
Right.
It's a little matinee action here.
Basically, yeah. I just get to get all my thoughts out now, so that I'm not talking over them.
This is a practice pod for you. You can really get to formulate your opinions, your thoughts, get some experience, spewing all of that information now, so that you can go into your show with Zach, RK, all the guys, and crush it.
Yeah, no, this is good because typically when I do a video, the second time through is much better.
Yes, of course.
Is what I've found.
Yeah.
The first time through, it's all right. Then the second time, you're like, oh, that was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So hopefully this one is good, but also don't get your hopes up.
Don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
Just for those of you guys who are new to the Denver Sports Podcast, this is a podcast where we talk about all the top news of the day when it comes to Denver sports. So, of course, today we've got to talk about the trade deadline. We've got to talk about the Broncos. I'm Christian Saez. I jump around, do a lot of different things. More specifically, I host the Rockies show. It's been a lot of bad days on the Rockies side of the world, so I figured I'd jump over to the good side of the world and talk some Broncos today. It's a lot more positive things to talk about.
It is. Yesterday might have been the darkest day for the Broncos in a while.
Yeah, I know.
Which is a little bit over the top,
Rockies,
but exactly. And even that kind of depends on perspective. I guess we found out that Pat Surtain was hurt.
Yeah.
That was a bad day. But we found out on a day that they won a football game. So that kind of outweighs it. So
and you look ahead to the games that the Broncos have coming up without Pat Surtain. And yeah, the Chiefs in the future. It's you always are concerned about that. But you felt like this was, if you're gonna get hurt at any point this season, this was like an okay time to get hurt. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving a positive spin on that.
I mean, you won last week without him.
Yep.
You've got the Raiders tomorrow, and nothing is ever guaranteed in the NFL. This isn't the NBA where the better team just kind of wins. So you don't want to take it for granted, but if there was a game to miss, the game against the team that just traded their top receiver might be a good one. And then you have the Chiefs afterward. Mm-hmm. And that's the one, the Chiefs before the bye, where hopefully he's back. There's a chance he's back. More likely, it seems, that would be the last game he misses before he comes back after the bye for the Commanders game.
Are you more in favor of, if there's a decision to be made about whether or not Pat Surtain can play in that Chiefs matchup, or if it'd be better for the Broncos to play the long game and have him take that extra week off with the bye week following that? Which camp do you fall in that regard?
You wait till that pec is totally healthy.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no reason, because it's not just about the Chiefs game. It's not just about this next month where he might feel a little bit off if he's playing. It's not even about just this season. That is in a lot of ways the franchise. That's defensive player of the year. You got him under contract for 5 years. If you are still feeling the effects of that 3 years from now because you decided to rush him back 10 days early, you're going to really regret it.
100%.
So you let it heal, and luckily the Broncos have wiggle room, as crazy as that seems.
Yeah.
You've got to lead. It'd be really nice because you beat the Raiders tomorrow. Chiefs are on a bye. Then you go to 8-2, and then that game against the Chiefs, if you win that, you go to 9-2 with the Chiefs at 5-5.
Unbelievable, yeah.
That is a massive opportunity
at that point.
Absolutely.
You're already in the driver's seat, but it feels completely different. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. Obviously, we're going to talk about the trade deadline. Want to talk about your feelings about this and some of the other teams around the NFL, how they handled the trade deadline, and then of course we'll do a little preview, a little scouting report on the Raiders and what we expect to see from them tomorrow. But we got to start with this trade deadline that we saw yesterday. The Broncos not making any moves yesterday. Obviously, there was a lot of conversation about what direction the Broncos should be headed in. You put out an article yesterday after the trade deadline. If you guys haven't seen that already, head to thednvr.com to check out Hank's article. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the Broncos deciding to not make any moves in the trade deadline. From your perspective, is this the Broncos kind of saying, hey, we trust the guys that we have here? Did they maybe attempt to make some moves and those moves just didn't pan out? Like, what was your take on why they didn't hit yesterday in the trade deadline?
So every report is that they were trying to go get Jalen Waddle.
Okay.
There's a bunch of that saying that they wanted him. The Dolphins just weren't willing to move off of their price for him. We don't know what that price is. The rumors there'd be something like a first-round pick and a third-round pick. The more I think about it, the more I think that the price was probably a first-round pick in Troy Franklin. Because if you're the Broncos, adding Jalen Waddle obviously gives you a massive upgrade. Like, that's the storyline if you add him. There is that second piece, though, where you say, like, okay, what do we actually do on Sundays? Because you only get to dress 46 players. They don't really have an extra uniform to give to another receiver, which means you have to choose one of your current receivers to not be playing on Sundays. Now, obviously, Marvin Mims has a concussion. He was back at practice. Seems like he's fine. But big picture, everybody's healthy. Obviously, you've got Waddle, you've got Court. And then after that, it's tough to take Pat Bryant's uniform away because he's your best blocker as a receiver. And they're really using him now because they have found that that's the case. Marvin Mims is an all-pro returner, so you can't really take his uniform away. Trent Sherfield plays special teams for a team that's really bad at special teams, and you can't really downgrade there. And that leaves Troy as the guy who, you know, he leads the team in targets.
Sure.
Like, he does add a lot of value, but he doesn't add that secondary value that all those other guys add, which puts you in a bind. And that's why I think, like, obviously you'd still like to keep Troy, develop Troy, see what happens. But to me, you'd just kind of be wasting him. Yeah. And obviously Dolphins would be looking for a receiver. It makes sense that instead of the third round pick, you just send him. And the more I think about that, the more I think Troy Franklin 5 years from now, when he's 27, if he's out there putting up numbers for the Dolphins or wherever he is at that point, you could really regret making the trade to include him with a first-round pick to get Jalen Waddle.
Yeah. The risk-reward ratio is tough.
Right.
But I think that was the idea that fans were looking for, is to see how aggressive is this Broncos team going to be at the trade deadline. What does that say? You saw the the Colts go out and make, the first blockbuster trade of the trade deadline. And the Colts, tied for the best record in the NFL. And when you look at the records and the comparisons between the two teams, you feel like on paper the Broncos should be right there with them. And so there was this idea of, like, are the Broncos going to go be aggressive? Are they going to go take their shot and say, hey, this is a championship window we find ourselves in, and we are going to be aggressive at this trade deadline? Or are they going to play more of the long game? And it sounds to me, although I wouldn't count them out for, feeling like this is a championship window to go compete out there. But it on paper looks more like you're playing the long game without making any moves at the trade deadline.
Right. There's definitely a piece of that. They certainly aren't all in.
Sure.
You can't say they're all in because they didn't make the move that would make you all in.
Yeah.
The long game for them is, Bo Nix is in year 2. Rookie contract is 4 years. So he's got 2025 this year on the rookie contract, 26, 27, then you need to give him the extension. Typically the first couple years after that are going to be pretty cheap. So if you say 28 and 29 are also affordable, really that's your championship window. Yeah. It's from right now until the 2029 season. So this is the first of those 5 years. Now again, like, a couple of guys have broken that mold. The only two quarterbacks who've been able to take 12.5% of their team's salary cap and win a Super Bowl are Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. Sure. So if Bo Nix turns out to be an all-time great quarterback, then all of a sudden that window is alive past 2029. But even just making a Super Bowl, other than those two taking that much of the team's salary cap, you've got Peyton Manning did it, and it was a weird one. It wasn't Stafford, it wasn't Foles, obviously, but there was one other right around that range.
Sure.
And so the numbers suggest that unless you're an all-time great quarterback, that second contract and after, you just aren't going to win a Super Bowl. And that's why you say 2029 is the last year. And things might change because there are a lot more quarterbacks getting that big money now. And so just by the odds, if 20 teams have a super expensive quarterback, you might see a few more of them. But that's why, getting back to the point, 2029 is the last year of your window. So if you decide to start trading assets now, does it hurt you then? I honestly don't think so, because Jalen Waddle's still going to be a good player in 2029. Sure. The rookie that you draft this spring in 2029 would be in his 4th year, so would be a good player. But next year he'd be a rookie. Year after in his 2nd year, how much is he really helping? So I think I would have loved to see them pull the trigger, because there's so many things pointing that way. Even just going 7-2, even if the Broncos have a better team 2-3 years from now, you can't be surprised if they don't get off to a 7-2 start. Yeah. Especially a 7-2 start with the Raiders coming up on a home Thursday night game where the home team already wins so much. I think that there was a way to invest more without feeling like, oh no, we're cooked for the end of this window. But they like what they have. They weren't willing to overpay, stuck to their guns, and the Broncos still have a very good team.
It's interesting to kind of compare how the different teams that reside here in Denver or here in Colorado approach being in a championship window. Right. Theoretically, you have 3 teams in Denver right now that are in a championship window.
Sorry,
right?
Rockies.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. 3 out of 4. Yep. The Avs, the Nuggets, and now the Broncos. And the Nuggets, the last couple of years, I think kind of took more of the Broncos approach. They said, no, these are our guys.
Right.
We've got Michael Porter Jr., we've got, Jokic, we've got Jamal Murray. These are our dudes, and we're going to trust these guys to get it done. Mm-hmm. And the last couple of years, it hasn't worked. And so then the front office kind of flips over, and the new front office comes in and says, no, we're going to go the opposite direction. We're going to go be like the Avs. We're going to be uber aggressive and go out and have the best trade deadline, best offseason free agent signings that we've ever had before. Mm-hmm. And because we recognize that Nikola Jokic is the best basketball player to ever play in the history of basketball, and we have to make the most out of this window. Now, obviously, Bo Nix is not in Nikola Jokic territory.
Very true.
But however, like you said, you're in a position where you're 7-2, even a good Broncos team down the road, you're going to be hard pressed to get back to starting your season 7-2, like you just said. So I think that's where a lot of fans, and myself included a little bit, felt frustrated with the lack of moves, or even any moves at all, that the Broncos didn't make here, yesterday, because it feels like, hey, look, like this is an opportunity you're not going to get very often. You got to go out and take advantage of this.
Totally. I mean, I think you're right on the money there. Again, the Avs being the super aggressive, we're in a window. What do we need a 22-year-old for? Or in their case, like a 19-year-old, because hockey's weird. The year after they win the Stanley Cup, they only made 2 draft picks, a 6th-round pick and a 7th-round pick. And they haven't made a 1st-round pick in a few years. This year, they had a 3rd-round pick, a 4th-round pick, and a 7th-round pick. It's 3 of their 7 picks. The rest they trade out and say, we would much rather have a guy who's 31 and has played a bunch of hockey than a guy who's 19 and can help us 3 years from now, because we don't want that. And like you said, the Nuggets, I think the famous quote from Calvin Booth, the GM at the time, after the Nuggets won the championship, was, we don't want to win back-to-back championships. We want to win 3 championships in 4 years, or maybe it was 4 championships in 7 years or something like that. The idea being extend the window. And then you look and say, okay, that did get you Christian Brown, who I guess they already had for that championship team. And you go through and say, okay, you got Peyton Watson out of it. You got Julian Strother out of it. You got, is that kind of the end of the list?
Yeah, that might have been the end of the list.
Hunter Tyson out of it.
Yeah.
But it didn't really pan out. And to see them totally flip this year into, let's go get Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah.
Let's go get Tim Hardaway. Mm-hmm. Let's bring Bruce Brown back, build a veteran bench that's just ready to go play championship caliber basketball. It makes sense. And the Broncos, obviously in a little different spot. Both those 2 teams have won championships. The Broncos, it's all still hypothetical, but week by week, we're seeing how it could be possible. I think after tomorrow night, you go out there with a big win over the Raiders, we're going to be saying, hey, you're 9-2 if you beat the Chiefs. You got to be talking Super Bowl. Yeah. Like those are the teams that do it. I think 15% of teams that go 8-2 to start a season wind up winning Super Bowl, 8-2 or better. You get to 8-2 exactly. If you get to 9-2, obviously it gets even better. Like the competition is the Colts, who upgraded, and the Patriots. I guess you throw the Bills in there too, because they're hardly trailing. But I think if you see the Broncos lose a close game in the AFC Championship, we're probably going to be thinking a lot about Jalen Waddle in that moment.
And I think that's where the frustration lies as well, is that the Broncos, yes, the record, if you just if you have blinders on and you haven't seen any of the games this year, but you go look at their record, you think, my God, this team is a juggernaut. They're dominant. You know, I mean, they can't be stopped. But we all have watched the games. We all are aware of how close some of these games have been. We're all aware of how dysfunctional this offense has looked throughout arguably the majority of the season. It's been bailed out by their defense time and time again. And so, yes, the record is good, but that a lot of times doesn't reflect the eye test with the Broncos. And so that to me is where it's like, okay, yes, you're finding ways to win, which is what matters. But when you eventually meet up with the Chiefs and the Bills and the Ravens and insert those kind of bigger teams there, like, how do you have enough pieces, enough playmakers to go get the job done? And that's where I'm a little bit concerned long term, is like, yeah, the record's damn good, but I don't know if I trust it yet. I don't know if I trust the playmakers.
You're not alone. You're not alone. And I think that's the other thing. You trust the defense.
Sure, absolutely.
The defense is going to, I think they're still on pace for the all-time sack record in a single season, beating the 84 Bears. I think they're going to beat it by enough that they'll have the most sacks in back-to-back seasons.
It's a Super Bowl defense.
Which was 84-85. Right. They're maybe not statistically best defense in the NFL, but there's a good chance that by the end of the year, that's pretty consensus. Like, look at what these guys are doing. They're unstoppable. When you start from that point, and it makes you think, okay, if we want to upgrade, how do we upgrade? Obviously, it's the offense. Where on the offense? Probably not the offensive line. You obviously can't change the quarterback. Tight end, you made your upgrade in the offseason. Could you find somebody who's maybe a little bit more versatile to upgrade in like kind of a number 2 spot? Sure. But you point to the receivers and say, again, I really like Troy Franklin. I think that he is a good player, and I think he has a chance to be a great player. But at the same time, if you go through every team in the NFL and just look at the player who has received the most targets this season, Troy Franklin's going to be like, in terms of just like your power rankings, like number 19 or 29 or like 30 on the list. Now, we all know he's more of like the number 2. He only has 2 more targets than Cortland Sutton does this season. But even as a number 2, the combination of him or Pat Bryant or Marvin Mims or whoever you kind of look at in that role, that's the hole in the roster. You know, you played the Cowboys, who have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, the Eagles, who have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You've played the Cowboys with Pickens and C.D. Like, there are 10 or 15 teams that you look at and say like, oh, your number 2 receiver is a number 1 receiver. And when you look at the Broncos, you say your number 2 receiver is like an exciting number 3, which makes it so easy to say, hey, you've got a young quarterback. How do you help him out? It's that spot right there. And they, like we said, just opted to not invest those assets now. And instead, we'll see who they draft. And you hope that the guy they draft turns out to be better than Jalen Waddle.
100%. Well, we got to take our first break of the show. I want to know what this trade deadline says from a player's perspective, because obviously we have our reactions, but the players are going to be feeling all sorts of different ways about this trade deadline. I know we spoke to some of the players as well, so we'll talk about that coming up after this first break. Well, I want to give some love right now to our friends over at Toyota. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR, and there is a reason for that. Toyota is the best in the game when it comes to reliable vehicles, and so many different options as well. Whether you're into big trucks that can get you, that can tow and can get you all the different tools and stuff that you need. You can haul different things, or maybe you want to go more the family route. Go with an SUV like the Highlander, the 4Runner, the RAV4. My personal favorite, the RAV4 that I drive. You've got so many different choices, and especially with winter right around the corner, man, you got to go pick up a Toyota. Toyota has all-wheel drive, hybrid options. They've got tons of different choices for you so that you can make the most out of your time driving around the roads of Colorado. Because I know it doesn't feel like it, but like winter is coming. It's right around the corner.
It is.
Got to have a car that can handle the good roads. And I can't say enough good things about my Toyota. I've been driving Toyota my entire life. Just got a 2024 RAV4 Adventure Series that has been an absolute beast. Still a little jealous that Spence gets to drive around the decked out DNVR Toyota Tundra, but beggars can't be choosers.
Right.
All right. He's the lucky guy who gets to do that. So if you are in the market to go pick up a new car, head to your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson's Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. Also want to give some love to our friends at Game Time, because if you're heading out to the game, whether it's the Broncos game tomorrow, I will be there.
Nice.
I'll be doing some Thursday night football action tomorrow. Or maybe you're going to an Avs game, a Nuggets game, whatever you're into, you got to use the Game Time app. Game Time is the best place to get tickets for any game. And the cool thing about Game Time, I was actually talking, speaking of Spencer, I was talking to him yesterday. He went to the Broncos' last game in Texas, and he was saying he was trying to get into one of the tailgates, and he usually waits till like the last second to buy tickets on the Game Time app, because with the Game Time app, the prices get lower and lower as you get closer to kickoff. But he was going into a tailgate, and he was saying they actually required proof of ticket to get into the tailgate, and he didn't have a ticket at the time, and he was in a line of cars. And he's like, I popped out my Game Time app. He's like, it took me like 2 minutes, super fast. You just go and type in your stuff. Game Time gives you the price that you're going to pay with taxes, fees, all of that included, so that you can see exactly how much it's going to cost. And then you go and get your tickets. And he's like, I didn't even cause a delay. It's not like I was causing traffic. He's like, it was perfect. Got in there, got to watch the Broncos in Texas. He's like, it was awesome. So Game Time, it's a great app. You really can't go wrong using the Game Time app. So if you're heading out to go watch some sports this week or next week, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use code DNVR for $20 off. Tap Ticket Go. Download the Game Time app today. Well, we saw a lot of teams yesterday talking about the trade deadline in the NFL. Mm-hmm. We saw a lot of teams yesterday making some moves. It was an active NFL trade deadline.
There was.
And I feel like the NFL, you don't normally see that as often compared to the other, major sports. Usually you see the other major sports, I think, just showing more activity.
Totally.
The NFL, that was an exciting trade deadline yesterday. And I don't know, maybe there was a part of me from the Broncos perspective, and just let me know in the Toyota chat if you guys feel the same. I kind of felt a little FOMO, with yesterday.
Yeah.
So yes, we're having all of our analysis. Yes, we're having all of our opinions on whether or not it was the right decision for the Broncos to not make any moves during the trade deadline. But I got to admit, there was some FOMO of just like, come on, Broncos, make a move. I want to see that breaking news pop up on my phone saying the Broncos just traded X, Y, and Z for this top receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a lot of fun. The other tough part for the Broncos is that, again, that defense is so good, you're not adding anything to it.
Sure.
Like, there's nobody out there. Like, there are some teams that say, like, oh, we just got to help out this pass rush a bit. And so you trade a 4th-round pick, a 5th-round pick for whatever, like, aging edge rusher who you think can be like an 8.5, 9 sack guy. Like, the Broncos just have no need for that caliber of player, even at receiver where we're talking about it. The only receiver that really changes things for the Broncos is a guy that you have to pay a 1st-round pick for.
Yeah.
There's no like, let's just go get Juju Smith-Schuster, or let's just, they don't need a guy like that. They don't need a Rashid Shaheed, who the Saints traded. If they were going to make a deal, it was going to have to be a big deal.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what made yesterday so big for the Broncos. So fun.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask, you talk about, is there a player that could make such an impact on the Broncos that it truly changes their trajectory long term? I mean, give me a hypothetical person, because it is hard to find, like you said, without you'd have to think about giving up, a 1st-round pick or some other, key players. Is there a hypothetical position player that could single-handedly change the Broncos' future and the success they have in the remainder of the season? Because again, they're 7-2 with what they got right now.
I mean, again, it has to be a receiver. It'd have to be Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that was the guy they were after, because that's the guy who could really change things for them. Waddle, again, guaranteed 1,000-yard receiver. That's just who he is. Has a 1,400-yard season, which makes you think, oh, you put him in the right offense. Where is he going to fall? Is he 11? Is he 12? Is he 13? But that's a guy who's right in there. And outside of that, like Garrett Wilson, it sounded like he wasn't available. He was a guy we talked about. Brian Thomas Jr., a little bit more raw, but with obviously the upside, had 1,300 yards as a rookie. It was those receivers, though, who could really change it. Because the big thing is, when it comes to playoff football, you get so much man coverage because you need to be able to stop the run. And essentially, it just becomes a game of just like best on best, one-on-ones across the board. And right now, you look at it and say, okay, Courtland Sutton is your number one receiver, which means he's going to draw the number one corner from the defense. Is Court going to beat that guy? I think sometimes yes, but the way he's going to beat him is going to be like a fade up the sideline, a lot of like kind of tough catches, but things that he's good at, and you don't hate the matchup.
Yeah.
After that, though, you just don't really have anybody you look at and say like, hey, you can just get open quickly and make something happen. And that's where like Jalen Waddle changes the look of your offense, or Garrett Wilson changes the look of your offense, or Olave changes the look of your offense. And again, it was Jalen Waddle who was the guy the Broncos were after, not those other two, which is why his name comes up so much.
Yeah, 100%. Well, the Broncos didn't make any moves yesterday, so that's the reality of it. But now we're reacting to what happened yesterday or what didn't happen. But I want to talk about the player's perspective, because we obviously have our takes, our opinions. What, from a player's perspective, what does this tell you? Does this build your confidence as a player to say, hey, these guys trust what we have and what we've been able to do? Again, accomplishing one of the best records in the NFL to start this season. I mean, what does that build in confidence for your team?
That's what Troy Franklin said.
Yeah.
It's like, yep, Sean said he believed in us, and he showed it, and he should, and we're excited about what we can do. I think that's a piece of it. I think that there's a lot of momentum that comes with where the Broncos are right now. It's a lot of guys who are playing the best football of their career. I think there's a confidence that comes with that. And the list goes on and on. We talked about Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin, best football of his career. Marvin Mims, maybe not quite the best, but toward the end of last season hit the best and has still been very valuable, being used probably the most. Pat Bryant, obviously, and the list kind of goes on. Defensive side, there's a whole list. Nick Bonito, Zach Allen, Justin Sternot. Like, there's so many guys in that locker room who are in the midst of a breakout. And I think it adds to like that air of confidence. And when Sean says, yep, we can do this, it does mean something.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people, also talking about the play calling. Play calling's been a huge topic of conversation. And, saying that like the pieces of the situation, the pieces of the Broncos offense, or the pieces of the Broncos team in general are there, but the play calling has been one of the reasons why the offense has looked so inconsistent. Is there any truth to that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, there are things that you can point to for sure. When you're sitting there at halftime, and I think at that point, J.K. Dobbins had 4 carries for, I think he was averaging 5. Might have been 6. I think he had 4 for 24. Like, how did you not get J.K. more involved? Mm-hmm. A lot of, I think it's very much overblown. I did a story about it a few weeks ago, just looking at things like, so Broncos take a lot of penalties. That might be the biggest thing holding them back from actually being a contender, is just that they take too many penalties, put themselves in bad situations. Because of those penalties, they wind up with a lot of, first and 20s, for example. And so John calls a run on 1st and 20, and everybody says, well, how could you do that? You can't be running the ball on 1st and 20. The answer is there's a 43% chance that you wind up picking up a first down on that set of downs if you run on 1st and 20 versus 37 if you don't. So there's a lot of those things that you see and you don't really like. But when you go through kind of the numbers, the one thing I'll say is that they are a bit predictable. There are some personnel sets where you can see exactly what's happening before the snap. And I think that, you aren't going to run behind Marvin Mims very often. You're not going to run behind Troy Franklin very often.
Yeah.
You're going to run behind Pat Bryant. So you see Pat Bryant's the receiver who lined up out tight. Then you might say this is probably going to be a run. I don't know if that's so much of a Sean problem for being predictable as it is a lot of these young guys are still a bit one-dimensional, and you're still trying to figure out what they are. So I don't think that the play calling is that big of a deal. I think the fact that you're second in the NFL in missed throws, and you're second in the NFL in drops, and you have like all these terrible penalties, it's those sorts of self-inflicted wounds that are really causing trouble. Right.
Yeah,
it's like if the players just make the throws, make the catches, and don't set themselves back 10 yards, you'd be looking a little different.
It's the Bo Nix overthrowing a wide open receiver in the corner, and then on the next throw, popping one right into the pocket. You're just like, what?
Exactly.
Doing,
like,
man?
why you lead the NFL in overthrows? Like, he's also so like he's first in overthrows, he's second in missed throws overall. He's also 4th in attempts. So you'd expect him to be high on those lists.
But hey, you're going up against Geno next week, man. Or not next week, tomorrow. Within 24 hours. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
This will be interesting. I know my expectations for this upcoming Raiders game tomorrow. I know your guys' expectations, but I'd seen a comment in the chat just a moment ago saying, the Broncos offense hasn't been consistent enough to overlook any team. And I think there's some truth to that. I mean, you know, as we'll kind of talk about this upcoming game tomorrow here in just a moment, but there's definitely something to be said about that. We got to take our next break on the show here. After the break, though, who won the trade deadline? And then also, what are we expecting to see from tomorrow, specifically out of the Raiders? So we'll preview that matchup coming up in just a moment. Well, I want to give a huge shout out to our friends over at Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an incredible sunglasses company that really makes sure that you have the best sunglasses for any situation. Whether you're driving out to work and you just need some good sunglasses that allow you to not get blinded when you're out on I-25 in the morning driving into the office, or maybe you're going skiing. Maybe you want to get some sunglasses that are going to protect you from that reflection off the snow when you're out in the mountains, or maybe you just want some good sunglasses you're going to walk around Denver with. Shady Rays has you covered. They are truly the best. They are great looking sunglasses. They're affordable. They've got polarized options. So if you're like me, you like to go fishing and you want to see into the water, you see where those little fishies are swimming around, get the polarized sunglasses. The cool thing about Shady Rays, though, is that if you break or lose any of your sunglasses, they will actually send you a new replacement for free. I got to say, I lose a good amount of sunglasses every year. It is a fault of mine. It is something that I definitely a flaw of my personality. I'm a big sunglasses loser. So I gotta use Shady Rays because they have you covered, man. You can't go wrong with Shady Rays. And we've teamed up with Shady Rays right now to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com. Use code DNVR. Get 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Also want to give some love to our friends over at Common Spirit Health. At Common Spirit Health, they're more than just hospitals and clinics. They're a team of passionate and expert caregivers dedicated to your well-being, woven into every fabric of your community. From preventative care to advanced surgical solutions, their skilled physicians and caring staff are here for you, offering personalized treatments tailored to your unique needs. You can expect a blend of cutting-edge technology with a commitment to human kindness at their 20 hospitals and 240 clinics and care sites right here in Colorado. Whether it's a routine checkup, managing a chronic condition, or responding to an emergency, you can trust Common Spirit to deliver exceptional care close to home. Experience the difference that compassion makes. Find a Common Spirit location near you and discover a new standard of health and healing by visiting mountain.commonspirit.org. Common Spirit Health, official healthcare partner of the Denver Broncos. All right, who won the trade deadline, in your opinion? Because there were a lot of moves yesterday, and we saw the blockbuster right out of the gate from the Jets and the Colts. That was obviously the big one to start things off. But who was the, as they say, stock up in the trade deadline conversations?
It's interesting. I'm not gonna lie. So I was so locked into the Broncos. You see everything come through, and it's like, oh wow, that's crazy. Yeah. And it's kind of on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Putting it all together and deciding like what I like and what I don't is very tricky. Big trade. I think the biggest trade from a Broncos perspective is that the Colts got Sauce Gardner.
Sure.
I think that helps their defense for sure. I think that means I call them a winner. At the same time, though, Sauce Gardner wasn't an All-Pro last year, wasn't a Pro Bowler last year, and that's because he wasn't good. The year before he was, and that's because the year before he was good, and he kind of got off a reputation. It's been a couple years since Sauce has actually been like one of the league's top cornerbacks. But he is playing really well again this year, which is a good sign. And because he's back, there's no reason to think that the penalty guy who really struggled last year in particular is who the Colts are going to get. At the same time, though, when you give up a couple first-round picks and a pretty solid receiver, a receiver who would very much be in the rotation in Denver, you gave up a lot.
Yeah.
And if we look back on this deal in 4 years and say, yeah, Sauce was never really that guy that he was in his rookie season again. Not sure why in hindsight they would give up those picks. I won't be surprised. But as of now, it makes the Colts better. And I'm going to work off the assumption that the Colts, that Sauce is still an elite player. And because of that, could be the difference between them winning the Super Bowl and not winning the Super Bowl.
And that was going to be my follow-up point to the Colts is, you're getting aggressive. You're telling your fan base, hey, this record that we have, that we started this season with, we're not willing to put that at risk. We're committing to this being our window. And forget what happens 4 years from now. We're here to win today. So whether that means they won the trade deadline or not, I think if I'm a Colts fan, I feel good about that.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Jets, though. I gotta give some credit to the Jets. The Jets, it's tough, obviously, because the Jets are a god awful team to root for if you're a Jets fan. But at least you're acknowledging where you're at. And again, if you're new to this show and you're new to me, I cover the Rockies, a team that is historically not admitted that they were rebuilding and not wanted to commit to rebuilding. So maybe this is the Rockies side of me saying, oh, look, a team that's bad and says, hey, we're actually going to go rebuild. But that's what the Jets are actually doing. So, yes, they suck. It sucks to be a Jets fan, but you are committing to the rebuild at this point.
Yep.
And you got a couple good first round picks.
Right. It should really work out for them. Again,
it's hard to say positive stuff about the Jets. But
I know.
You're looking at that in a step forward.
It's just so hard when you don't know exactly who Sauce Gardner is at this point in his career, you know? And I think that just makes it such a challenge. I'm trying to figure out. So they take on about $20 million in dead cap, the Jets do, which means that the Colts are going to pay 72, let's call 100. So they're going to pay about 110 million, 120 million over the course of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. That's a pretty good deal if he winds up being a top end corner. And the way the money works in those trades is interesting. It's because you have him for $15 million less than what an elite cornerback is getting paid for the next 5.5 years. So that's kind of a steal. And the Jets gave that away. If you make these trades work, then yes, like if you trade these first round picks, go get a quarterback, the quarterback works out, then obviously when you lose Sauce, it is what it is. It's like the Broncos losing Clinton Portis back in the day. It's like, he was awesome. He kept running for 1,500 yards after he left. At the same time, though, you got champs, so you can't really, nobody's upset about it.
Yeah. My whole theory with this is that nobody in the AFC made a deal either because nobody's afraid of the Colts, even after the moves they made. My theory is that they all know Daniel Jones is a pumpkin, and it's just going to convert back eventually.
There's no taking the New York Giants out of Daniel Jones.
No, and I really believe the AFC is not afraid of the Colts because if Kansas City makes this trade, Bills, Broncos, everybody goes into an arms race.
Yeah.
But since it's the Colts, they said, we really don't give a fuck. Go ahead, do it. What are you going to do?
I mean, and the Broncos, not to reopen old wounds, but I mean, you should have beat the Colts too. You're right? No, I agree with you. Yeah.
If the Jets, though, trade these picks and it turns into like a Trey Lance type deal, where it's like, oh, you traded all that and the quarterback sucks, losing a Sauce, losing a Quinnen Williams, and not hitting on the quarterback, the Jets might reach a level of suck that they have never reached before. And that is now in the cards. But again, that's
talking Rockies level of suck?
It's possible. If you trade away your two kind of star players and miss on the quarterback, there's a risk there. But you have to, there's probably no way for them to get better without some sort of risk. 100%. And so you have to say it was a good day for them. It makes sense for them.
It's always a risk when you trade away a Sauce.
Right. So true.
I don't really know what the Cowboys are doing. That was the head scratcher for me, man. You trade Micah Parsons away,
right?
And then you go, trade first round picks for Quinnen Williams. I just don't get what Jerry Jones is doing in Dallas. Does anyone know what Jerry Jones is doing? Does he know what he's doing?
Never.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So again, Quinnen Williams, good player. Maybe played the best football of his career last year.
Yeah.
I'm not super in tune with the Jets. That's kind of my understanding. He's really good at what he does. You pair him with Kenny Clark in the middle. That might be the best duo of interior defenders in the NFL, especially because Jalen Carter and the other guy out there in Philly, they're good, but they might not be that good. But that's the other duo you probably look at. Or Zach Allen, JFM. That might be a stretch, but maybe you get in the conversation. It's probably a stretch. But you gave up so much for him, and he's 27, and they're just timeline questions, which is the whole "what is Jerry doing" thing. There's a chance they get hot and could make the playoffs. It's just hard to believe that they were one piece away from fixing that defense.
Who's the more concerning owner, Jerry Jones or Dick Monfort?
Unfortunately, Dick Monfort.
Yeah.
Sadly, my my first thought was, who's going to die sooner?
Yeah, well,
because it's kind of just like a longevity thing in some ways.
The Monforts are just going down the list here. But let's talk about the Raiders' upcoming matchup because
it's the truth though. It's like the contracts. It's like Russell Wilson on a bad contract. You had like 5 more years on that thing.
Yeah.
It's you overpay a guy for 1 year, you get to move on.
Yeah.
With those guys, it's yikes.
Which funeral are you going to?
No, I'm just saying like Monfort's like, it's like Walker and then Sterling. And I mean, it's going to keep going down the Monfort list. But yeah,
I'm hoping one of the Monfort kids has the right mindset to just sell the team and be like, I don't want to deal with the fans anymore. That's my one hope.
We'll give the Penners the Rockies. We'd love that.
I've got another one.
Cronkies try to buy them.
So I think maybe the biggest loser is the Chiefs. Because
I could see it.
Everybody thought that they would be trading for Breece Hall. That's a star running back. They could really use a star running back. And the price was a 3rd-round pick, and nobody was willing to pay the 3rd-round pick. The Chiefs 3 years ago now, traded a 3rd-round pick and a 6th-round pick for Kadarius Toney, who is not an NFL player. He might not even be in the league anymore, I would imagine. To be able to trade that for him, but not for Breece Hall, who actually could. I think Breece Hall could be the difference between them winning the Super Bowl and not winning the Super Bowl.
Sure.
That to me was crazy.
Yeah. No, I agree. I 100% agree. I want to change gears real fast before we have to hit our last break because we've got this short week preview. Broncos playing the Raiders tomorrow. It's a game that feels like a lot of games we've seen from the Broncos this year where it's like, okay, you should win. You absolutely should win. Are there any concerns for you coming into this game? Offensive consistency.
I don't know how you lose this game. You got to knock on wood when you say things like that. Just because, Geno Smith, ignoring the start of his career where he was bad, didn't get to play with the Jets, goes to the Seahawks. The knock on him ever since then has been he just takes too many sacks. He just takes too many sacks. Now, he was doing other things well. You're hitting receivers downfield. You're not missing a lot of throws, running the offense well, but he took a lot of sacks. Now you take that quarterback and put him behind one of the NFL's worst offensive lines. He's a walking sack. And you're going up against the best pass rush in the NFL. So I think that alone should be enough to stop the passing game. I obviously, then you throw in, they just trade away Jacoby Myers, their top receiver. I kind of like that Trey Tucker guy. I think that's his name, Trey Tucker. Speedy little receiver, but he'd be wide receiver 4 for the Broncos, probably. It's not like he's that good. And you got Bowers to deal with. The offensive line isn't working. They're feeding Ashton Genty a lot, but he's giving him 4 yards per carry because the offensive line is just so bad.
I was going to say, Genty. Right. I'm curious to see Genty go up against Harvey, in the running game.
Yeah, it's like Genty legitimately might be averaging 4 yards per carry and averaging 4.2 yards per carry after contact.
Yeah.
Where it's he's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage and still finding a way to get something. But that offense is just so bad, and the Broncos' defense is so good that it's tough to see the path. It just take a defensive breakdown from, I guess, the young guys who are going to be playing at corner.
Yeah.
Then offensively, the Broncos' offense dries up. After seeing what they did against a bad Cowboys defense, it makes it really easy to say they should just put on a performance, not maybe to that level, but pretty close to it. And even if they don't, 15 points like they did, 18, I guess is what they finished with against the Texans this week, against the number 1 defense in the NFL. That should be enough to win this game, given the Raiders offense versus Broncos defense.
Yeah, I agree with Ricky, though. Biggest concern, it's a Thursday night game, and crazy stuff can happen on a Thursday night game. I think the only way the Broncos lose this game is if they just don't show up ready to go, right?
Fumbles, turnovers, penalties.
Mistakes, bad passes. It's just... It's gonna be a situation of if you're shooting yourself in the foot, that's how you lose this game. It's a short week for both teams, though.
It's gonna be a 6-0 win for the Broncos.
A 6-0. Okay, that's dark.
Gonna be. It's not even gonna be 2 field goals. It's gonna be a touchdown and a missed extra point.
Okay. Name 2 defensive players for the Raiders.
I'm not talking. I don't even know who the.
I know.
Max Crosby is one of them.
Yep, I know. That's what I said too.
Crosby is one. The other one, I don't care because overthrows, drops.
Yeah, right.
I think the Broncos are going to beat
this
themselves.
hater out of here,
I know.
dude.
The Broncos offense is just so up and down. It's if they again, that's the other thing about the Texans game this week. It's they were playing a really good defense. At the same time, I don't even care about that too much. It's just you missed opportunities.
Yeah.
Like they gave you windows to throw into and you dropped the ball, or you missed the throw, or whatever happened.
Yeah.
The fumble.
No.
It's
knock on wood. Broncos aren't losing this game, man.
just play the football you're capable of, and you might win this game by 20.
Yeah, 100%. I think the concern for just Broncos fans in general is just the idea of like, what if, right? If they lost this game, not saying they will, but if they lost this game, it would be all-time crash out moment, right? And that's the frustration of entering a game like this on a short week, a Thursday night game. Anything can happen, and you're just like, God, they're gonna win, but you just don't make us eat our own words, right?
Right.
So, yeah. This guy's an all-time hater today. You take Yaya off the Broncos pod, and
he's been
just,
disillusioned.
I love him so much. It's just the way they've been winning.
What's
feel good.
What's like your arc to the season? Like, where'd you start? When did you feel like, oh, they're good? When did you turn back to their?
I started very high.
Okay.
That Titans game brought me down to about 80% out of 100.
Okay.
Then the next two games, actually, they were losses, but it brought me back up because the offense are good. Then ever since then, I've been riding around that 75, kind of like 60% because the offense hasn't just looked good against good teams.
Okay.
And that's the thing that has me fearful.
So,
you need to put at least 24 points to win most games.
Okay. And what do you need to see tomorrow to feel like the Broncos are like, oh, they're actually good?
5 total touchdowns.
5 touchdowns. Okay, 5's a number. Honestly, might be possible.
3 from Bo.
It definitely is possible.
There
I
we
need
go.
3 from Bo and 2 from the running backs.
Okay,
5
fair
total
enough.
touchdowns in the total game. 5 total touchdowns. You're talking about? All right.
Yep.
Everybody put together.
All right. All right.
Okay.
I like it. Yeah, I know. Someone. We would take his mic, John, but he has control of
Nobody
that.
listens to him anyway. Yeah.
All right.
I'm actually turning it on for these takes. So nobody can say anything.
Let's pause for a quick moment and wrap up the show coming up. All right. I keep seeing people bringing up the whole cloning situation. Did you see that? Did you guys talk about that yesterday?
I did. My thought is just that if you're
That Tom Brady cloned his dog?
right, I think that he has some like weird.
I didn't even know that was possible, first of all.
Right.
This is news to me.
Right. There's some sort of like psychological thing that's going on with him that I think makes it tough to accept death. I think it might have something to do with like, he's Tom Brady. You have all these things.
live
And I won't be
forever.
surprised. I think that, right. And I think he might really fear death, and that is kind of showing itself in the form
I
of not
fear
being.
death, but I'm not going to clone my dog.
No, because I think there is like a psychological level to it where it's like he's
Like, that's crazy.
Like, I think he really is like deeply insane, and so it's like, no, I need my dog.
I
We're
do think
bringing
you have
the
to be
dog
deeply
back.
insane to be
Yeah.
a GOAT. Like to be a
totally.
Michael Jordan, to be a, Shohei Ohtani, to be Tom Brady. You
Right.
kind of have to be deeply insane.
Oh yeah, and I think that is the thing that's kind of manifesting itself. It's not just like rich guy gets to have his dog back. It's like there's something up in there that's making him think that he can bring his dog back. When instead you could just go get.
You could go get a new dog.
I had a Newfoundland, great Newfoundland, very good dog. You go get a different Newfoundland. It's going to be pretty similar. Like
sure,
it
but
might not
also
be the exact same.
You fall
but
in love with the different types of
Right.
different, features
Yeah,
of the dog.
He wasn't willing to lose that dog.
But
that's
this is
wild, man.
My theory is that he cloned his dog to see if he can clone himself after he dies.
It's all just a start.
I think
the answer is yes,
I
isn't
think
it?
he's trying to see how far he can push this and what the side effects are of cloning.
I also just like our human brains aren't set up to process something being a clone. So when you look at this dog, I would still be thinking it was a different dog. Like, yeah, you look and act just like my old dog, but you're a different dog. Like, what? Just go get a different dog. You've got
I wonder
billions of dollars.
I wonder if he names it the same thing, or if it was like, this is.
He did, yeah, he did.
He just calls it squared.
It's
So
just
two.
the same dog. It's just apparently the same. I don't know.
But this is my question:
absolutely
does the
insane.
dog have memories of Tom?
No,
Does the dog
no,
remember
no.
that? That's like,
It
what's
doesn't.
the point of cloning the dog?
But if you can do it with the dog, you can do it with a person.
Okay,
I
but
don't think so. I don't think
but
that's
this
the
is like
same.
I think you could.
The thing that makes Tom Brady great at being a quarterback is his mind and how he reads the game. If he gets cloned, does that transfer over to the clone? And does he become the Tom Brady of always? He does it. So what's the point of cloning?
Yeah, Viv in the Wild says, start cloning endangered species. Aren't we, I do
think
remember
we
seeing
have
we already
done
didn't the dire wolf or whatever, that extinct Wolf, didn't they like clone one of those dire wolf creatures from back in the days, like the saber-toothed tiger days? You know,
I think they did
Ice Age.
something that was like, they used like a lot of dog DNA or something that was, and so then when people dug into it, they're like, okay, you kind of barely did this.
Wild.
But
it does feel like Jurassic Park.
Again, like the DNA is DNA. If you can take that dog's DNA and throw it in there, like you could do that with a person. It's just the legal and all that sort of stuff things.
Yeah. If there's someone that's going to agree to be cloned after death, Tom Brady does seem like the type of guy that would sign up for that.
He's a weird
Real
guy.
quick, top 5 Denver athletes you'd clone right now.
Top 5
Jokic,
Denver athletes that I clone.
McKinnon,
Yeah, Jokic
Pat.
and McKinnon, easy.
Jokic, McKinnon, Pat. I guess that's probably where it gets tougher.
I think it'd be
Maybe-
Drake Greenlaw at number 4. Imagine having 2 of those guys out on the field.
Is there... wow, that is tough.
I don't know. It is tough after that.
Jokic, McKinnon, Pat. I mean, you got to throw a quarterback in there, right? So do we go John Elway?
Oh, wow. We could go backward, huh?
Shannon Sharp, tight end.
Yeah. Shannon Sharp would be sick. Vaughn.
Is there a single Rocky that gets thrown
Mutombo?
into that list? Like do we get
For
like
me,
Todd
Todd
Helton?
Helton. I would
no,
get
see,
Todd
I
Helton in a
actually,
heartbeat.
even as a Rockies guy, I'm agreeing with you. I don't think we put a Rocky into that
I
list.
actually- if-
Todd was great, but he's not like Jokic or Elway, right?
Right.
Like he's really good as a first baseman and offensively and whatever. But
The one I would actually clone is Ubaldo Jimenez. Having a starting
He was
pitcher
awesome.
on the Rockies for the first time in like 15 years would be kind of dope.
yeah, but Ubaldo was like really good for like a couple years and then he kind of fell off.
Well, yeah, we only need a couple years. We
What
haven't
do you mean we only need a couple years? The Rockies need 10 years to get all this figured
So
out.
we'll wait 10 years and then we'll clone him and we have a starting pitcher.
All right. That's a good question though. That's good. I like that. Yeah. Who would you clone as a Colorado sports figure?
Would you clone Carmelo Anthony and teach him to love Denver and keep him here as your starting 3?
I don't know.
Yeah, because are you wiping the memory? Is this like a starting from scratch kind of thing? You wipe his memory and because we were talking about that with the dog. Like, does the dog have the same memories as before?
Right.
You would think no, right?
There's no way.
So I mean, if you clone Carmelo and you bring in peak Carmelo Anthony and you put him on the Nuggets today, this would be his home. He'd love the Nuggets because they're so good now, right? And they're the NBA superstars now.
Yep.
I think you could do that. I
Maybe.
think Carmelo would be a good one.
Or we just go for 22 Janos and actually fulfill the dream.
Yeah, maybe not that one.
What a wild,
weird
wild
use of
conversation
cloning.
this has turned
Yes.
into. All right, this is a good segue to kind of jump around Colorado sports right now. We always finish our Denver sports podcast with kind of the top news for every team right now across Denver. The Avs and the Nuggets kind of in the same boat right now. There's not really any big news coming out of the Avs and the Nuggets. It's business as usual, right? It's the Avs power play needs some work some days. Other days they look incredible.
Yep.
It's the highs and lows of early season, and that's kind of the same thing with the Nuggets, right? Like there's nothing extremely pressing for either of those teams. It's just a long season starting up for two championship contending teams.
Absolutely. Like I think at this point, the crazy thing is, so like the Avs had like was it a 4-game losing streak?
They did.
And you're just like, oh my goodness.
And the
how can that
overtime
happen?
losses are brutal for the Avs.
They are, but they also have 2 more points than any other team in the NHL.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you're on top of the standings. Like there's nothing to fear there.
The Avs kind of feel like the Dodgers, in my opinion. And let me explain what I mean before I get hated on for this. The Dodgers are a team that, like, you go through the ups and downs. The Dodgers split a series against the Rockies, by the way, this year. I mean, you talk about ups and downs. But when you show up to the playoffs, that's when the regular season starts for them. Like, that's how I feel like the Avs are, where it's like you show up to the playoffs, and that's when it all begins. The Avs will get to the playoffs. It's really just about how they play in the regular season to get them the seeding to get to the playoffs. And then once you get there, then it's like, all right, you got to show up and play. And now the regular season starts. So it's not a lot of huge stuff from
the Avs look like by far the best team in the NHL, and that's a pretty nice starting point. The Nuggets, there's no reason to be concerned about them. They lost in overtime at Golden State to start the year. They blew a lead. They should have won easily. It is what it is. They had the weird calls at the end of the Portland game. Like, that offense is as maybe not as good as it's ever been. Yeah, there's going to be a step down offensively when you lose MPJ. And the bench though is incredible. The defense is awesome. Like both these teams are in good shape. And the Avs in particular, like, my goodness, they're flying through the NHL.
And like Casey Mack says, Avs still only lost one game so far in regulation. Got to figure out the OT stuff.
Like, that is why you're at 21 points.
Yeah.
Montreal's at 19, obviously in the East, but like in the NHL standings, that's next up. It feels pretty good this quickly into the season.
It's huge. And the remaining team in our Colorado sports sphere, there is another. The dysfunction has returned, although maybe it never really went away to the Colorado Rockies. But it felt like there was a moment of reprieve where we were like, hey, they're hiring a new front office. And there's some qualified candidates that like might come in and, I don't know, get things going back in a better direction. If you don't pay attention to the Rockies world, I don't blame you. But the Rockies parted ways, or I should say the two front office candidates who were in the running to take over the front office parted ways with the search. And now the Rockies are in conversations, at least reportedly, with Adam Ottavino, current Major League Baseball pitcher, Adam Ottavino, to possibly lead their front office charge. Now, I obviously do my show about the Rockies, so I don't want to get too much into my thoughts on this, but I wanted to get your take on this. What's your take? Because you're a sicko like the rest of us Rockies fans.
Yeah, made it to like 20, 25 games this year.
It's huge.
One of the few of us. So let's start with the first part. First part being the two guys who it seemed like were going to, one of the two of them was going to take the job, left the search. Every indication is that they left the search because they were told that they wouldn't be able to hire front office staff because there's likely there's going to be no season because of a lockout in 2027. Rockies are unwilling to pay whatever it be. Say you go crazy, you spend $3 million on this staff per year, and there's the chance that there's a lockout in 2027. They can't afford to be paying that money for those guys to be doing nothing if there's no baseball that year, and that means there will be no overhaul to the front office. And that's why apparently those two guys said, we're not going to take this job if we're not allowed to build a staff to do better. And those are the things that the Rockies do and nobody else does in baseball or potentially even in sports. And that's why they will never be good again. So for all the hype that we had about, hey, this guy could come in, like he has ideas, he knows how this works. When they back out of the search because the front office or because ownership is scared that, hey, we can't be making big change. We can't be taking out contracts now because
Spencer
2 years from now.
Spencer made the comparison of like an ex-girlfriend, right? You break up with someone. That was the Rockies moving on from their front office and saying, this time it's going to be different. And so Rockies fans come back and say, or at least some of us, come back and say, all right, this time it's going to be different. You've got some legitimate candidates here.
They know what they're doing.
That know what they're doing. You've got front office people and maybe Walker Monfort will be different than Dick Monfort this time. And it felt like, hey, there's a chance. And then, you get back into that relationship. You start texting that girl again. And now you find out, well, nope, that was all smoke and mirrors.
Yep.
At least on paper, everything's still the same.
Yeah, the idea that like, oh, we could be out a few $1 million if there's no season that year, so we just can't be doing this. Like the Rockies, that essentially means, oh, we'll try to start getting better in 2028. What kind of plan is that? Like you're literally just refusing to do anything to try to build starting this year, saying, oh, we'll just punt on the rest of 2025. Punt on the rest of 2026, punt on 2027, and then 2028, that's when we might try to start the rebuild.
Yeah, and good luck. Good luck.
Insane.
I mean, already for the few people like us that are still sticking in there as fans, we just love baseball too much.
Right. And then Ottavino part.
And then the Ottavino part,
which I love. So I wasn't all in on the former player thing. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. I think for the Rockies in this particular situation, though, Adam Ottavino in particular makes a lot of sense because you remember Adam Ottavino, awesome pitcher. First 6 years with the Rockies was like, he's okay. What does he do?
Sure.
He buys a warehouse in New York where he lives. He turns it into a pitching lab. He has all this crazy technology and turns himself into the Rockies' best, one of their best relievers they've ever had.
Sure.
And immediately goes through all this, builds this whole thing so he can get into the data. Why does he do it? Because the Rockies don't have this when other teams do. He goes out, does it himself, comes back, pitches 2 more years with the Rockies. Those are the 2 best years he has with the Rockies. So good that then the Yankees take him. That is the exact mindset that I want from this front office, is that like, here's how we do these things. It's modern baseball. We can track all this. We can use data. We can use analytics. He understands it. And he's proven that by going out of his way in his own career. The idea that you could apply that to this pitching staff, to this entire organization could be a huge step in the right direction. Again, though, it doesn't matter if ownership won't invest.
Yeah, I just think there's so many more layers to the Rockies' problems. But if you want to hear more about that, you can head over to the DNVR.com/Rockies. I talked about that yesterday with Spencer. Yep. We're coming to the end of our show, so we're going to wrap things up. Appreciate you guys hanging in there. Hoping for a good game tomorrow between the Raiders and the Broncos. And if you guys want more Broncos talk,
15 minutes.
15 minutes from now, you guys are going to be doing a full Broncos show coming up next. So thanks for hanging with us. Shout out to Yaya for being the hater and the producer today. We'll see you guys next time. This has been the Denver Sports Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.